The Star Princess did not ask for an army. She asked for one person who would stand between her and the knives hidden inside her own palace. The High Council expected Earth to send a young champion. Instead, the Terran shuttle opened, and out walked Abram Cole, 74 years old. One artificial knee humming with every step, the princess stared in disbelief. The old human looked at the palace towers and said, "I have buried fear too many times to start obeying it now." Princess Leora of the Astral House had been born under a comet and raised under surveillance. Every meal tasted, every hallway watched. Her father had died in a border ambush. Her brothers had vanished into politics. And now, the crown rested on her head before she was ready. 3 attempts had already been made on her life. Poison in a silver cup, a sniper beam through a prayer window, a servant with shaking hands and a blade wrapped in silk. The council called them incidents. Leora called them warnings. So she asked the Alliance for protection, and Earth answered with Abram Cole. That was the first mistake of her enemies. They saw age and thought it meant weakness. They saw wrinkles and forgot scars, our maps of survived wars. Abram refused palace armor, ceremonial quarters, and the guard captain's polished schedule. He walked every corridor himself, touching walls, counting steps. Watching servants who watched him back, Leora followed him on the second morning. Irritated that her protector moved like a maintenance inspector, "You do not even look at me," she said. Abram kept his eyes on a ceiling vent. "People trying to kill you already look at you enough, Princess. My job is to look where they hope no one will." She asked if he was mocking her. He said no. "I am keeping you alive in a building designed by fools." Then came the night of falling stars. When the palace lights dimmed for the coronation vigil, and every window filled with meteor fire, the attack began during the hymn. Not with explosions, but with silence. Every drone froze, every scanner blinked blind, and the royal guard line split exactly where Abram had said it would. Assassins descended from the ceiling in black gravity silk. Leora reached for the emergency pendant. But Abram was already moving, too slow to impress a battlefield, too precise to waste a heartbeat. His cane snapped open into a compact shield. He shoved her behind a pillar, and the first stun blade struck sparks from the human's raised arm. Leora expected him to fight like the young duelists of court tournaments. Abram fought like an old disaster. Ugly, economical, final. He used furniture, broken glass, anything that turned grace into confusion. He did not chase enemies. He ruined angles, blocked exits, forced them into each other, and spoke calmly through the chaos. "Left foot back, Princess, breathe through the smoke. Do not run toward open space. Open space is where cowards put crossfire." That was when Leora understood Abram Cole was not too old for violence. He was too old to be impressed by it. The assassins changed tactics. One seized a child attendant and dragged him toward the balcony. The court froze because royal blood had always been weighed above common life. But Abram did not freeze. He handed Leora his shield and said, "Hold this like you mean to live," then walked straight toward the assassin. Empty hands lifted. "You want someone valuable. Take me," the assassin laughed. "Old human, you are worth nothing." Abram answered, "That is what makes me dangerous." "No one budgets for worthless men," the assassin lunged. Abram stepped into the attack instead of away from it, caught the blade against his artificial knee, locked it there with a grinding sound, and drove his shoulder into the mask. The child fell free. Just the clean collapse of arrogance. Leora pulled the child behind the shield, and for the first time in her life, someone had protected a servant before protecting the crown. The idea struck her harder than the attack itself, but the final blade belonged to someone she trusted. Counselor Varish, her father's oldest advisor, emerged from the smoke holding the override crystal that had blinded the palace. He aimed a royal disruptor at Leora and said the Empire needed a wiser symbol, not a frightened girl guarded by a dying animal. Abram stood between them, swaying now, coat scorched. Breathing like broken machinery, Varish sneered. "Move aside, relic." Abram wiped ash from his beard and said, "Son, I have been called worse by better men. The disruptor charged. Abram did not dodge. He threw his cane at the chandelier above Varish. The chain snapped, crystal crashed down around the counselor. The shot fired wide, and Leora used the shield, exactly as Abram had shown her. Driving forward, not backward, striking Varesh's wrist. Knocking the weapon away, guards surged in, but the princess had already ended the betrayal herself. The last lesson arrived in the quiet after terror. Protection was never meant to make her helpless. It was meant to keep her alive long enough to become dangerous to those who owned her fear. At dawn, Leora stood before the court with Abram seated beside her. Refusing a healer until every servant had been counted? The council demanded Earth explain why it had sent an old man instead of elite protection. Leora answered before the envoy could speak. Earth sent me someone who had already outlived terror, someone assassins could not frighten. Flatter or purchase, someone who saw the palace as it was, not as we pretended it to be. Then she turned to Abram. Will you remain as captain of my guard? He shook his head. No, princess. I will remain until you stop needing me, months later. The Star Princess walked her palace without trembling. Servants learned their names mattered. Guards learned loyalty was measured by action, not posture. And the council learned that crowns guarded by frightened children are easy to steal. But crowns guarded by humans are expensive to threaten. When enemies whispered that Earth had sent an old man because it had no champions left, Leora smiled and corrected them. Earth sent me something better. A human too old to be afraid. And that made him young enough to stand in front of death one more time.